It is a great pleasure that I invite up tonight Lee Goldberg, Cbst member, who is giving us a drasha in honor of the anniversary of his bar mitzvah portion.
Shabbat Shalom. I was planning to do this on iPad, so. One of the best things about Seinfeld was its ability to introduce words into our lexicon for well-known situations we just didn't have a name for. So, some of you may remember the episode where Jerry's dentist re-gifted him a defective label maker that Elaine gave the dentist as a thank you gift. Despite Seinfeld's creation of a neologism, re-gift, the question of whether a defective or subpar gift should be considered a gift at all was answered by our tradition over 2 millennia ago. In this week's Haftarah portion, God warns the Israelites through God's messenger Malachi that a person will be cursed if he has a healthy animal in his flocks and promises it as a ritual offering, but then sacrifices an unhealthy animal instead. In other words, a person must give up something he or she truly values, something that he or she will feel the loss of, for it to be considered a bona fide sacrifice. Here, Malachi is talking about actual animal sacrifices, but the principle applies in equal measure to gifts. If you give someone a broken label maker as a thank you gift, you're not really giving a gift at all. You're just getting rid of something you didn't want so you can fulfill a perceived obligation to that person. Sacrifice in this Haftarah portion, therefore, has 2 meanings. It means ritual offering, spilling the blood of an animal on an altar, as well as giving up a piece of ourselves that we truly value. It's this latter meaning I want to explore tonight. I'm not suggesting that every gift needs to be a sacrifice. Of course, people give small tokens of gratitude all the time, and I'm not diminishing those. What I'm talking about are those pieces of us that we give away and we feel. Those pieces of us that we cannot get back, but having given them away, enable us to say, Hineni, here I am. Hineni. The word appears just 9 times in the Torah, often when God is calling out to our ancestors. It appears 3 times in the Akedah, the binding of Isaac, a near sacrifice that perfectly embodies the dual meanings of the word. Twice as God or an angel calls out to Abraham, and once as Isaac calls out to his father. It appears 3 times later on in Jacob's story, twice as God or an angel calls out to Jacob, and once as Jacob calls out to his son Joseph. And it appears when God calls out to Moses from the burning bush. Hineni also appears twice in this week's Torah portion, Toldot. And like in the Akedah, Isaac is involved. As Isaac prepares to bequeath his blessing to Esau, he calls out, my son. And Esau responds, Hineni, here I am. Isaac sends Esau off to hunt for food, and an impossibly short time later, Jacob approaches his father, disguised as Esau, and calls out, Father? Isaac responds, Hineni, here I am. Which son of mine are you? To which Jacob replies, I am Esau, your firstborn. The word Hineni has incredible power. What could be more powerful than standing before God and saying, here I am? So why does Isaac look so weak each time the word involves him? Either Isaac is appearing to be deceived after Abraham says Hineni to Isaac, or Isaac says Hineni to Jacob, or Isaac is appearing to fail to get what he wants after Esau says Hineni to Isaac. We can look at Isaac differently, however, if we carefully scrutinize Hineni each time it involves him. We can do that by looking at Hineni through the prism of sacrifice, giving up a piece of ourselves that we truly value. Rather than viewing Isaac as Abraham's victim, the presence of Hineni in their short conversation on Mount Moriah reveals Isaac's courage, as Isaac not only forces his father to come to terms with the fact that Abraham is about to make the ultimate sacrifice as a parent, but Isaac also demonstrates his willingness to make the ultimate sacrifice as an individual, his own life, to do God's will. In this week's Torah portion, Hineni similarly reveals Isaac's courage and willingness to sacrifice to do God's will. Rather than viewing Isaac as an ineffectual parent or the dupe of Rebekah and Jacob, we can view him as a strong patriarch who gave his heartfelt blessing, his heart and soul, to the son he intended all along. As God told Rebekah, as twin sons struggled in her womb, the elder shall serve the younger. Isaac sacrifices his relationship with his elder son, potentially giving up Esau's love for him by doing God's will and giving the younger Jacob his blessing. Viewing Isaac in this way reclaims the power of Hineni for him. It signifies that a bona fide sacrifice is being made, that someone in our forefathers' story is giving up a piece of himself. The pieces of themselves that our forefathers are prepared to give up: a son's life, a son's love, one's own life, one's blessing, go to the core of who they are. In our lives, too, we're often required to make bona fide sacrifices to reclaim the power of Hineni for ourselves. The power that comes from saying, "Here I am." I'm talking about giving up those pieces of ourselves, our identity, that go to the core of who we are. Some of you have heard this story, my Hineni story, before. But this week's Torah portion helped me see it in a new and more meaningful light. Growing up, I dreamed of being the first Jewish president of the United States. This meant I expected my life to unfold in a certain way. It meant I'd do well in school, get into a good college, succeed in my career, marry a woman, not happening, and have children. It meant that if any feelings got in the way of how I envisioned my life to be, I had to bury those feelings. So that's what I did when I was in my early teens and started feeling the way about boys I was supposed to feel about girls. I buried those feelings. But after living through 9/11 here in New York, I viscerally felt my mortality. I realized that my dreams of having a wife and children and becoming president weren't sustaining me. I wasn't being true to myself. So, to be true to myself as an out gay man, I gave up a piece of myself that I truly valued, my dream of becoming president. Next week will be 16 years since I came out. Maybe if I'd grown up during the last decade instead of the 90s, then I wouldn't have felt I needed to deny my sexuality in order to be president. But back then, I felt I had to sacrifice this dream in order to live my truth. What have you sacrificed to say Hineni? What piece of yourself have you given up to live your truth? Did living your truth mean giving up your relationship with your parents? Did it mean giving up your friendships? Did it mean giving up your job? Did it mean giving up your home? Did it mean giving up your hopes and dreams? What did you sacrifice to live your truth? I know that every one of you, gay and straight, trans and cis alike, has sacrificed something to live your truth. But for LGBTQ people, that sacrifice can be particularly painful, even more painful than giving up my dream of becoming president. More than half the states in this country don't have laws protecting LGBTQ people from employment or housing discrimination. So many of us must sacrifice our jobs and our homes, not to mention our families, to live our truth, to be able to say with pride, Hineni, here I am. Tonight we're observing Trans Day of Remembrance, commemorating the lives of those brave individuals who lost their lives to anti-trans violence. For these individuals, living their truth means giving up the gender they were born with so they can live as the person they identify themselves to be. While this is true for all trans and non-binary individuals, those we commemorate tonight sacrifice something even greater, their lives. Each of the past 3 years has been deadlier than the last for trans people in our country. And this trend is bound to persist as long as politicians and other public figures continue to demonize trans and non-binary individuals, banning them from serving in the military, criminalizing them for using the bathrooms corresponding to their identity, preventing them from accessing health care, such that hatred against them becomes normalized and violence becomes acceptable. Do not accept this. At Rosh Hashanah this year, Rabbi Kleinbaum told us to be the reason someone believes there is goodness in people, which Stephen just said as well. Tonight I offer a twist on that. Be the reason that LGBTQ people believe there is goodness in humanity. Coming out as gay, lesbian, bisexual, trans, or queer is a sacrifice requiring immense courage. Recognize that sacrifice, as we do tonight with Isaac, by ensuring that every LGBTQ person can say proudly and with dignity, Hineni, here I am. Speak up for LGBTQ people. If you speak up, then one day we will not have to give up a piece of ourselves to come out. And no young gay, lesbian, bisexual, trans, or queer individual will have to sacrifice their dream of becoming President of the United States to say, Hineni, here I am. Shabbat Shalom.